already getting a little bit dicey for me, but let's see what the solver has to say. All right, drum roll. Our opponent had today I'm going to go over another hand in this Phil vs. Solver series, where I look at how somebody played a hand, how a solver would play it, and how I would play it differently. Today our hero is going to be facing a river jam with third pair on a paired board. This hand is at 100 NL fast. Yeah, we'll just take it from there. So our hero has 5-4 of clubs in the small blind. Folded to our hero, who opens to 3 big blinds, which I think is probably okay. A lot of strategies are viable there. Our hero gets 3-bet to 9 big blinds, and our hero calls. Right away, I'm unsure about that call. We'll reference the solver soon. Flop is deuce, deuce, 5 with 2 spades. We have clubs. We check. We face a half pot bet, which I think we're probably going to see always or in the solver. It seems like a good sizing and a board that gets c-bet a lot. And we call. Standard thus far. I don't think we want to be raising this hand, but it wouldn't shock me if we see some raises in the solver. Turn is the queen of diamonds, now bringing 2 diamonds. Check, and we face a 2/3 pot bet. Our hero decides to call. It's already getting a little bit dicey for me, but let's see what the solver has to say in a moment. And lastly, on the 7 of diamonds river, we check. We face an all-in for 3/4 pot, and our hero decides to call it off. So let's get to it. Let's see what we learn from the almighty solver. Folded to the small blind. Solver likes opening to 3. We get 3 bets, and 5-4 suited is actually mixing, calling, and folding. This is against a 10 big blind 3-bet, so against 9 big blinds, probably just call, or mostly a call. So that was fine. Hero, friend. 5 deuce deuce flop. I assume we're going to check 100% of range. Yep. And our opponent, it's actually checking a quarter of the time. I thought we might see a range c-bet for something in the neighborhood of half pot, but actually our opponent's supposed to be betting third pot a decent amount, half pot a decent amount, and checking a decent amount. So not quite as aggressive as I expected our opponent to be. We face the half pot bet. I assume we have a call, but let's see if this hand ever raises. Nope, pure call. Queen of diamonds, 100% check. We're out of position, and now we face 2/3 pot. So yeah, as I suspected, it's getting a little dicey, and actually it's a fold. So 5-4 suited is calling sometimes, but that's actually only with diamonds. So it's calling 5-4 diamonds with the flush draw, folding 5-4 without the flush draw. The weakest made hand that we call without a flush draw is king 5. So 5 with an overcard, king 5 and ace 5 call. So this is too loose on the turn. We should be folding in theory. I'll take a look again at the big blind's betting range. I don't know that I would expect people to overbluff this spot compared to a solver. They're going to find all the value bets of like queen x plus. It looks like there's also, so jack and 10-10 can keep value betting because queen x is folding flop for out of position. They may or may not find those. But actually the solver's checking. Maybe I'm wrong. So solver's actually checking a lot of flush draws in position, which some people might bet. I think it's because you don't want to get check raised, and you want to be able to hit some rivers. Ace high flush draw is often betting, presumably to bet call, and then it's bluffing kind of some more pure air hands like jack 8, jack 9 offsuit with 1 flush draw blocker or 2 flush draw blockers, and stuff like that. So I mean, I guess I'm not familiar enough with the 100 NL games to know how often they're finding those bluffs, but they might find them enough, and actually they might have too many bluffs if they end up betting draws too frequently. So we ended up calling on this river. We're not going to be able to use 5-4 as a calling hand to see, but actually worth noting that out of position actually has a donking range on this river of, I'm going to go with half pot on the turn. It looks a little better, and actually we might get 5-4. Yeah, 5-4 is calling sometimes against half pot. Let's do that to get the SPR on the river a little bit better. So yeah, we're donking some flushes and stronger, and then obviously some bluffs. I bet our hero is not doing that. Most people don't. I don't think humans do that. It's kind of complicated to do on this board. Maybe I'm wrong. And then against the jam, in theory, this hand's a fold. Let's look at the big blind's jamming range and see if we can spot some areas that we think it might be making a mistake. So over pair plus are jamming. It's not going to mess that up. Ace, queen, king, queen are jamming. It's not going to mess that up. Or the human, they're not going to mess this up. Queen Jack is sometimes shoving, doesn't get here that often. Queen 10 and Queen 9 are checking. So could potentially see too many value bets. Does some weird ninja shoving with jacks and 10s, which I don't think is necessary. Why does it do that? Does not fold out any Queen X. I guess it's value, and it's so that blockers don't get too valuable. But that's, you don't need to do that. So it's jamming a lot of hands that don't actually even have a flush draw. So like King 9 of Hearts. That's something that people miss, I think. Like King 10 with a heart and a spade. I think with a single diamond, which it's doing a lot too, people find those. So like when people get here with a single diamond, they bluff a lot, I think. But when people get here with two hearts, I think they mostly check. Kind of same thing as we get down to the lower cards. Ace highs are mostly checking, but occasionally with like weak ace high with a diamond is betting. So like ace wheel. So a few thoughts. First of all, in the solver, our opponent only has a flush 5% of the time. And that's because, as we saw on the turn, they're checking back a lot of flush draws. I would expect people to follow through on the flush river more than the 7 of clubs river. And so if they're playing like the solver on the turn, I think on a 7 of clubs river, they're going to underbluff. And on the 7 of diamonds river, they're going to bluff enough or overbluff potentially, because when draws get there, people tend to follow through more often because they kind of have that heuristic in their mind of, more stuff got there, so I have more stuff that can value bet and fewer things that can bluff, so I need to bluff more. And then they also oftentimes have the habit of when everything misses, they don't want to try to rep it, and they just give up too much. So on a 7 of clubs, I would have said, let's definitely fold. On a 7 of diamonds, I'm really not sure, because it's going to depend so much on whether or not our opponent is betting turn with the right range. So if our opponent is betting, basically there are two types of opponents I think that you face here. So there's the one that's studied the solver and is actually betting the solvery range, and then I think actually that opponent is going to end up potentially overbluffing river, following through a little bit too much with stuff. But if you don't have a solvery opponent, usually what happens is they bet the turn with, like 10-8 of spades and 10-8 of diamonds and like flush draws of either kind, gut shots. And yeah, with ace 3, ace 4, they're going to follow through with like a single diamond. But when they have 10-8 of spades, they usually give up because they have bad blockers. And then they actually have more flushes because they're betting turn with more flush draws than they're supposed to in theory. So against those opponents, I think that we are going to kind of get wrecked by calling. I think they're going to be way under bluffing because they're going to actually have more value hands, and not as many bluffs because like they check turn with the jack 9 with a single diamond. So I think that opponent, and then they give up with the spade hands. Obviously, it's not binary. These aren't the only two types of opponents that you face, but this is, if I were in this spot against an unknown, I do kind of build this model in my head of against the opponent who is betting the solvery range on the turn, I should call my hand by a little bit. And against the opponent who is betting the kind of, I would call more human, intuitive range on the turn, I think we have a very clear fold. So if you average those together, we have a fold. And I think pretty clearly, because it's very close on the one side and then super fold on the other. So I would fold this hand, given that obviously if our hero has some reads on this opponent that puts him into this category of player that's betting the solvery range on the turn, I think you can make a hero call here and be successful. But I would not go for it, given the reads that I have right now. So let's go ahead and find out. All right, drum roll. Our opponent had King 3 of spades for the missed flop flush draw. So a couple of things are interesting there. First of all, our opponent did bet the kind of more human range on the turn. I should actually check if King X of spades. No. So solver checks King X of spades. So they're betting the human range on the turn. But then they did follow through with the spade hand. And so that was kind of neither of the categories I gave. It was the betting the human range on the turn, the intuitive range. But I thought people usually give up with spades because they're blocking spades that are check calling twice and folding. So having seen that showdown, how do I like the call? I think I still don't like it. I think the read of them betting the turn with draws kind of outweighs the read that they actually followed through with this particular spade hand. That said, maybe I'm maybe having second thoughts because like it's a pretty bad hand to bluff river with. Let's just see if it bluffs any spade. So yeah, it doesn't bluff any spade hands. I'm torn. I think river's a really close spot now. Having seen this hand, I like my fold having no information. Having seen the villain play this way, betting too many draws on turn, but actually bluffing a hand that I wouldn't bluff with. No great conclusion other than I happen to be wrong in this hand, given the showdown. And props to our hero for winning a big pot. If you have some hands that you want me to see and review, please send them in. Either put them in the comments below or email them to askphilgalfond@gmail.com. I'd like them to have some river play because that's where I think all the fun is. I'll see you next time.